All right. Y'all know what time it is. It's another fun episode of Running with WARR, where we always flying high, we're always balling. 24/7, 365. It don't even matter what type of basketball is on. The ball is always bouncing in our court. And it's been bouncing all summer long.
Are we hooping or balling?
Also, we balling. We balling. Now, we get the ramifications of hooping. We're balling.
Okay.
That was a whole other debate on Twitter on whether you were a hooper or a baller.
Yeah.
We'll tap into all that stuff later. But man, it's another Running with WARR episode with the guys. Drew Stevens, the maestro. Our bro Gabe Wilkins. Shout out to DePaul for the DePaul Connect.
Yes, sir.
Your boy Josh filling in the host for Kyle this week. Supposed to have Ricky O'Donnell on, but he may be coming on a little later, so we'll see. But in the meantime, for now, we're going to do this 3-man weave real quick as we discuss all things NBA, all things basketball in general, because we got a lot of stuff going on. You got Team USA on both the men's and the girls kicking off, and both right now are doing pretty damn good. And not to mention now that the draft that just took place in the NBA, but free agency as well. So before we tap into all that, I gotta start off with the hometown Bulls, because my gosh, I have not been able to put such a big smile on my face all year long. I did for Vucevic. I did for Vooch. But that was a brief thing, because we had some question marks still. So it was a quick little, so it wasn't a full smile, it was a smirk. I gave a nice little smirk. Trying to figure like, okay, this may lead to something, but we'll see. And now we got the full fruition of what the Bulls really meant by revamping this whole roster into making it what it is. With the sign and trade of DeMar DeRozan, the sign and trade of Lonzo Ball, bringing in Alex Caruso on the mid-level exception. They just signed Tony Bradley today. And not to mention, you already drafted Ayo. Oh, man, I'm just all up in the ears. I'm happy as heck right now, man. Yeah. But you're still hearing the backlash from people talking about, this isn't on a championship team. I'm like, you must have forgot what Gar Pax was like for the past decade. Like, you must have forgot the hell we had to go through with this franchise. I love the moves of what the Bulls have made. They made it relevant, and they changed the narrative of what it means to be a national team, a national marketed, televised team. And on top of all of that, I think they just pretty much made it clear, like, with the Vucevic trade, they made it for sure. They said, this is Zach LaVine's team. Zach LaVine's our foundation. The ball is in his court, and we need to do everything we can to put the best talent around him. They made a very big statement so far this offseason with drafting with Ayo and bringing in, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and Lonzo Ball, like I mentioned, filling needs and voids that the Bulls lack. And even though they may not be championship caliber, this is a guaranteed playoff team that should be not necessarily above these teams, but at least tier 2, tier 3. We talk about the Atlanta Hawks, the New York Knicks, but potentially the Boston Celtics from the past playoffs last year. They should be in that range where they could hit like a 4 or 5 seed if they really live up to that expectation, or at least be a 6-7 seed to make the playoffs next year, where we don't have to worry about a play-in tournament. They're automatically in there regardless. And that's the expectation that I have, considering the coaching staff that we have, the moves they made so far, which we have to admit, they're not done just yet. They still got to figure out what they're going to do with Lauri Markkanen and that situation. They still got to fill out the rest of their bench and most potentially get some more front court depth. But I'll start off with you, Drew. Like, I love the moves, but what specifically was the move that really got you thinking, like, okay, this is a different Bulls front office management that we're thinking of and have been accustomed to for the past decade to show that the Bulls are really real?
So it was the way they've done the moves, because the whole summer, or going from when their particular season ended, it was, man, we got some holes on this roster. Connosovas and Eversley got a lot of work to do, but they don't really seem to have a lot of ways they can get it done. But with the work of JJ Polk, who's I've seen him get, some praise here and there, but probably not enough considering the way he's kind of finagled these contracts and working to where they're being able to do these signing trades and get the help of these other teams for them to be able to do that. They didn't have to shed cap room to bring in Lonzo Ball. That's huge. That allows you to do so many other things. So I think it wasn't necessarily like I'm the moves they made have me just excited as the next man or most of the next men. Some guys, some girls still, people, you can't please everybody, man. They always gonna find something. But, just the way they've gone about making this roster into their own. We're talking about a roster that technically only has 3 players on it from the Guard Pax era, if you want to throw marketing in there and his cap hold. So, they've gone about their business. It may have been slow at first, but you come into something, you want to see how things go, be able to better evaluate the situation, and then they going for it, man. They are going for it. Some questions about getting rid of Wendell Carter Jr. and some, the draft capital that they did to get Vucevic, but they saw where things were going, decided to switch paths, and they are continuing down that path now, and it's exciting, man. It's very exciting.
Well, what I like about the moves that they made is that you have Eversley and Karnasovis now inserting their own blueprint onto this team. And anybody who knows me knows that I've been very critical of the Bulls over the last several years. I don't hide it just because I'm from here. I watch the league top to, the bottom. I'm going to call a spade a spade. It is what it is. But when I see the roster that they've inhibited and what they've brought into the mix, I like it a lot. I don't think a guy like Lonzo Ball would be here if it were, the previous regime and Guard Pack still in the mix. I don't believe that a DeMar DeRozan is able to land here if it's not for Eversley going, all the way out to LA, putting in the work, doing his due diligence to meet up with DeRozan and using his previous ties that they both shared to Toronto back during their days with the Raptors. So I think that's huge. I think it shows that they want to seek to improve and better the organization, which is needed because this is an organization that prior to them coming here, they had a very bad reputation with guys in the league, from local homegrown talent to others. And not that, the city of Chicago is a bad place. A lot of guys love coming here to play. A lot of guys work out here in the summer. They train here and all of that. But to be able to get a guy like Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan, specifically Lonzo Ball, a guy who I don't even think has scratched the surface of his potential in the league. Like you now have in Chicago 3 all-stars. You have Levine, you have DeRozan, a guy who, albeit not a champion yet, has been there, done that, has been to some places where these young guys are trying to go. And Vucevic, even, including with some playoff experience. Zach's never been there. Kobe's never been there. They got a bunch of guys that you got a nice infusion of veterans with some young players now, with a real coach in the building and true guard depth that can really help your team become a player in the playoff picture. And a nice, tough competitor to Milwaukee, who's dominated the Central Division in the wake of LeBron's departure a few years back. So I like the moves that they made. I think that they've gotten a lot tougher, and I'm excited to actually see this team up close in person. It was very hard to go to Bulls games over the last few years. I think this year you'll see more fans out there, and with reason to be, because they got some guys that can really play.
Yeah, and I love how you brought up the mixture of that guard depth, right? Because one name that obviously DeMar DeRozan makes you stand out as with the caliber that he has, his all-star caliber play, and his offensive skill set and what he brings to the table. But Alex Caruso to me was huge, bringing in the Caruso from LA to Chicago to play with to mess around with. He's excited to come home and play with Benny the Bull, But to be able to get someone like that where defense, especially defensively, can help aid that perimeter defense that the Bulls lacked for so long. and he has championship experience winning that championship with LeBron in LA.
Mhm.
I think that can help take this roster that much more of a leap when it comes to being a true pro, showing up to work every day, really putting in the effort and the work to win because he knows what it takes to win a championship, and not just bringing the defensive component, but also adding the fact that he shoots 40% from three. That's what he shot from 3-point percentage last year. Something that was left. So he's as a catch and shoot guy. I think Caruso really is a very vital piece to this rebranding that the Bulls are doing. And to me, I thought that was one of the biggest deals of this free agent period. What do you think, Drew?
I mean, to you guys' point, yeah, definitely one of the bigger steals or biggest surprises. We kind of saw that Lonzo Ball thing, all the talk about that since March. And, the DeRozan and the Caruso signings are more kind of the bigger surprises, obviously. But to you guys' point, man, these moves, man, you got players who aren't just one-dimensional. You got guys that can defend. You got guys that can, like you guys said, can catch and shoot. Also, what it does for LaVine, getting him more off the ball, he doesn't have the responsibilities that he's had since he's been a Bull, where he's got to basically do everything every night. Patrick Williams, some people might say this might stifle his development. I see it more so as it pushes him, and man, God bless him for doing this. It pushes him to the fore where it feels like it's more of a natural comfort for him. And he does not have to at all worry about the offensive burdens that we thought he was going to have to. Like, we still need him to make a jump. But before this free agency period, we were like, man, this dude has to have, like, he's got to take like a Giannis, like, Euro step leap offensively. He no longer has to do that. Improve, do what he can do. But he's not going to have so much of the responsibility when you got LaVine, you got Vucevic, you got DeMar Rose, and you got three guys that can create their own shots. Kobe White off the bench can create his own shot. What I'm really looking forward to is me and Gabe exchanged tweets a little bit about this. How does Billy Donovan, how creative does Billy Donovan get? Because he doesn't seem to have any problem, mixing and matching guys in the lineup, no matter what it is, how much money somebody makes, it don't matter. Like, he's going to throw out the guys that he thinks is going to give the team the best chance to win. Sometimes that backfires, but I like that in him. So I want to see what he does when he goes small, what that lineup looks like. If he needs to have more defense, does he pull DeRozan or LaVine? You know what I mean? Like, just situational things, seeing how he navigates that. Do we see Ball and Caruso on the floor at the same time? Like, it's so many possibilities now that just did not exist before, and that's part of that. That might be the biggest reason I'm excited for this upcoming season. And also, I might be jumping the gun a little bit. We talked a little bit about standing wise where they might be. Play-in should not be like this. Should not be a 7, 8, 9, 10 seeded team. This team at worst should be 6. I can see them jumping up to 4th. Possibly, if things fall the right way. I'm not really looking at Philly too much. It's more so, like you guys said, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Miami made some great moves too. I think if there were any teams that were kind of looked at as the winners of free agency, it'd be kind of the Bulls and the Heat kind of going neck to neck if I'm remembering everybody's moves correctly. But I'm excited, man. What do you guys think about, if you don't mind me picking a topic next for the winners and losers? Yeah, do you guys think I'm on the right course saying the Bulls are definitely in that conversation, if not leading that conversation?
They have to be at the top of the top. And the reason why I say that, anytime you get a guy like DeRozan in here who is a 25-5 guy and could get to the line at least 6 to 7 times a night. If you watch the Bulls last year, you know how much they struggled to get guys at the free throw line. And, to add him, a guy who will be a perfect fit for this team once they get themselves in the position to make it to the playoffs, because he's a mid-range assassin. If it was the 90s, he probably would be the guy that everybody loves, is one of the top shooting guards in the game. But one team that I think won free agency that no one's really talking about are the Utah Jazz. they had a very quiet offseason. They didn't make the most splashy signings, but they acquired some solid vets who will provide them with some much needed versatility and depth that last year's group, while great, and they had the best record in the league, they lacked. To add a guy like Rudy Gay into the mix, who, albeit he's not the same athlete that he once was in the prime of his career coming into the league with Memphis, but is a 38% three-point shooter. I think that's a guy who you can have possibly as a small ball five within Quinn Snyder's lineup. To add a guy like Hassan Whiteside as a backup big, you know, you won't see too much drop-off from Utah's defense when Gobert is out or he sits due to foul trouble. And I think having him in the mix against opposing bigs, you know, other teams' second unit, that's very key. And to get those two vets over there, and then to add Eric Pascal earlier today, a guy who's very versatile as well, and to retain Mike Conley. I mean, when I look at their bench, you have the reigning sixth man of the year, Clarkson, out there, Rudy Gay, Eric Pascal, and Hassan Whiteside. That's a lot of firepower. And most importantly, they have more wing depth than I can ever recall them having in quite some time. And then you have Bogdanovich in your starting rotation as well. Like, whether Ingles decides to come back or not remains to be seen. But even if he doesn't, I really like this Utah team to make some noise out west and give some teams a tough run for their money.
I feel you on that, but I'm going to bring in another expert that can help elaborate on all that as well, because before I get in my feelings about who really won this free agency, I got to bring in our guy, Ricky O'Donnell, SB Nation. How you doing, bro? Glad to have you back. And I kind of want to circle back into things because I know we started a new topic, but you know, Ricky just wrote a masterpiece on the Bulls picks and moves they made this offseason. I want to talk more about that and get his input on pretty much what's his opinion on the Bulls' recent moves that they made, and how does it really shape the Bulls now versus what we previously have been accustomed to these past years under Garpax.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. I would say the thing that stands out to me the most is it truly feels like they built the best possible team with the assets they had at their disposal. Now, obviously, that meant trading 3 future first-round picks, which was the type of move Garpax absolutely never would have made, and a lot of front offices around the league won't make. But I think that Karnisovas, when he was hired, realized the cupboard was just so bare. 3 top 7 picks, 3 number 7 picks in Markkanen, Carter, and Kobe. That just didn't look like it was going to materialize into the foundation of a playoff team moving forward, right? Even coupled with Levine. And I think that he just felt like, he had 2 options. Either trade Levine, burn it all down. He gets to do the drafting himself. And, they're going to take a long window view of this. Or he's just like, screw it. I'm just going to try to maximize how good we are right now in the midst of Zach LaVine's first All-Star season. When he started to level up, I think Karnisovas looked around and he was like, well, let's get aggressive. Let's make some moves. I think given the constraints that they had to work with, it really does feel like they built the best possible team. Now, how good is that team? I agree with what Drew said. I think 6 seed should be the expectation for sure. Could they climb higher than that? Yeah, maybe. But it's just really exciting to see them sort of take this avenue and just act in a way they've never acted before. Like Garpax, they made 1 trade to improve the team. They traded for John Salmons and Brad Miller in 2009. Otherwise, any other trade they made was just to ship out salary. Cost-cutting trade. Luol Deng, gone. Butler, gone because they didn't want to pay him. So to have a GM that's actually like, you know what? These draft picks are also a lottery ticket. It's a lottery ticket either way. You know what I mean? Either trying to build through the draft or trying to build through established veterans in free agency. So I love what they did. I would hope that a year or 2 down the line, they can make even more moves. And that in a league where it feels like stars dictate their move, like when AD was a free agent, he wasn't exactly open to the highest bidder. You know what I mean? He was like, I'm going to the Lakers, so send me to the Lakers. Same thing with Paul George when he got traded from the Thunder to the Clippers. So I would like to hope that the Bulls are now establishing themselves as this sort of team that a top-level guy wants to come to. And when Kevin Durant is available or when Nikola Jokic is available, they want to come here. And they also did all these moves while over the cap, which is amazing because as Bulls fans, we're accustomed to like Garpax going up there and being like, yeah, you know, the 2012 plan is really going to save us, you know, in 2010. Like they were always saying like 2 years in the future was going to be their free agency plan. And the Bulls didn't clear any free agency space, any cap space to be able to do this. Teams line up cap space years in the future. The Bulls made all these moves just by having relationships around the league, which I think is a huge benefit from the old front office. And so, yeah, I'm jacked up, obviously. I think it's awesome. And yeah, we'll see. Like, it's funny. The detractors, some of the detractors are like, great, you're the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. That's purgatory. That's the worst place you could be at. But actually, like, making the 6th seed when you're terrible for 4 years in a row, that's awesome. You just don't want to be the 6th seed for, like, basically 3-4 years in a row with no upward mobility, right? But there's no evidence to suggest that that's what's going to happen to the Bulls. They didn't have cap space this time and they got all these guys. So, you know, 2 years from now, they could be attaching a 2027 first rounder in DeMar DeRozan to get Kevin Durant or to get Nikola Jokic. So I think that's the big picture view of what they were trying to do. Just like make Chicago a destination, make Chicago cool. If the team's good, the city's going to be buzzing, which has not been the case since they traded Butler. I mean, no one cares about the Bulls around the city, it feels like. And now the Bulls are going to be hot again if they're winning games, if Levine and Lonzo are connected on alley-oops, and Alex Caruso is just dunking on people. I'm sure you guys saw that clip, some of the highlight videos of him going around after they signed him of Caruso, just like doing tip dunks and like sick fast break posters. That'll be fun. So yeah, I'm excited.
So I just got to put this out there. You giving us hope that we going to get Kevin Durant. You just putting that out there like he's going to come to Chicago.
He loves Zach LaVine, right? He loves he keeps talking about LaVine.
And the dude is rocking Kukoc jersey. So, I mean, hey, and professing his love for Kobe White and Zach and Vooch and what they're doing. So, I mean, you know, there's reason behind that.
Well, can't you see a scenario where like the Nets win the title this year and a bunch of 14-year-olds online tell Kevin Durant it's not a real ring because he teamed up with Harden and Kyrie, and then they do it again the next year and people get mad at him and they say it's not a real ring. And he's like, all right, screw you guys. I'll go lift up the Bulls. I'll take them to a title as long as he feels like he has enough firepower. So that's the big picture. I don't know if it's going to play out, but like that is just as likely to happen as you tanking, being terrible, throwing away seasons, and praying to get lottery luck in a draft where the number one pick is like a super obvious star that even the dumbest franchise couldn't mess up. So there's a lot of variables, right? Like I just like this as an alternate path. And yeah, I see no downside. I honestly see no downside to it. People disagree with me.
I mean, if anytime you can get Kevin Durant to come to your city, I'm pretty sure there's not gonna be a downside to that either. But that is one knock that people have said about LeBron James, right? Is the fact that you had the chance to come back and be the next best guy to basically revive a franchise like the Bulls since Jordan. Like you could have been the Jordan of this era if you came to Chicago when you could have to be that guy. Right, and he didn't take it.
It's a difference in that. It's a difference in that. When LeBron was thinking about coming here, it was 2010. He didn't have a ring at the time. To come into Chicago and play beneath the backdrop of a banner where 23's number is hanging high above the rafters, that's a lot of pressure, especially when you 7 seasons in at that point, like he was going into year 8, and you were about to team up with Derrick Rose and Carlos Boozer. Granted, it wouldn't have been like what it was in Miami, but the backlash in the media here, it would have been hot. It would have been real heavy. With Durant, at least Durant's coming here with at least 2 rings, potentially 3, but he has a player option after this season. To me, it gets interesting when you look at Durant. I think about it like this. Say Brooklyn doesn't win the championship this year. All 3 of those guys, and Harden, Kai, and KD can opt out their deals. If Durant wants to opt out of his deal, then if you're the Bulls, why not put yourself in a position to be a suitor? And the one great thing about these contracts, they're not long-term deals. You signed DeRozan for what, 385? Caruso 3 for 37. Like that's Ball for like a 4 for 80. Like that's those aren't long-term deals. And Lonzo's a guy who I think can be here for the foreseeable future. You will keep a guy like Zoe around because he's a young piece, but you can make some moves for and entice a guy like Kevin Durant here who keeps a top-down view of the league. He pays attention to what's going on, so I know he sees it, and that would be intriguing.
I mean, put it this way. What % chance do you guys think there is that Durant retires on the Nets?
0.
It's a crazy question.
Like 95% unlikely.
Yeah, he probably won't.
Yeah.
And he's only, 32? Even when Kevin Durant's 35, 36, he's still going to be awesome. He's still going to be 7 feet tall and one of the greatest shooters ever. So that's kind of like the big picture view. To me, like, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, the fact that they did all this while being over the cap, I just think is so encouraging. Like Garpax they wouldn't even have been able to be smart enough to figure this out. They would have traded everyone, cleared cap space. And the Bulls are like, no, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Take our 2031 first round. Like, give us some good players. We don't care. Draft picks are fake.
Yeah.
You can create cap space whenever you want to.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But when you talk about the draft, though, the guy that we drafted this year, homegrown talent in Ayo Dosunmu from Morgan Park, I'd say I think they hit it in the nail in the coffin with this one when you talk about what was available at that time. Because especially since Ayo right now is a right now ready player who has who fits what the Bulls ideally want. Right? They wanted to fit the versatility and toughness component of this team. And for Ayo Dosunmu to be a combination guard who can guard point guards as well as shooting guards and small forwards around the perimeter, can play all three positions, has a nice handle, can create for himself, improved his shooting over the past year by shooting over close to 50% from the field and 40% from three during his time at U of I, and is a proven winner. I think all those components play a role in the versatility role that they may ask him to fill within the Bulls, and they could be a benefit for right now. I kind of view it as in he may be what Jimmy Butler was when he first got here. May not get a lot of minutes, may not be the offensive firepower guy, but he was a defensive stud. He played great defense around the perimeter, and that helped boost his name in the minutes until over time he became who Jimmy Butler is now. But I think Ayo is a good addition to this team for the right now, especially since the Bulls have pretty much increased this process of just getting by to know we're playoff bound now, and that's where we're trying to go. I'm interested to see, Ricky, what are your thoughts on that? Because oftentimes we have been trying to pick up the pieces as far as trying to even stay afloat with our draft picks. But with the hit on Patrick Williams last year, and now with Ayo Dosunmu, it seems they got a couple of guys that are like ready to at least push this movement quicker than we originally thought it can be. Am I overthinking that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start off with what to like about Ayo. So, I think his size is just his best attribute.
I'm counting down till you start talking about Sharif Cooper. I'm waiting.
Yeah, I am going to. But I'm going to compliment Ayo first because I like Ayo. I've watched, I'm sure you guys have too, just as he's a local kid. Like, I've known about Ayo since he was a sophomore in high school. You know what I mean? When he transferred into Morgan Park. So it's an awesome story. It's great. I love to see that. Kid from the city getting drafted by the Bulls. Warms my heart every single time, especially someone like Ayo. I talked to him. I did a big story on him right before Illinois went into March Madness. And he's just like so cool. Like, I'm not surprised all the teams were like, he interviews so well. Like, it was fun talking to him on the phone, talking to his dad. Super great kid, high character guy, all that. From a skill set perspective, I love his size. I really didn't know that he had a 6'10.5" wingspan. He's huge. So basically, what I think his path is towards being a valuable contributor is I think, at Illinois, he was always the point guard. Like, he was the star. I kind of think he's got to go into more of an off-ball role in the pros because I don't think he has the burst as a ball handler to, like, beat NBA defenses at the point of attack, at the first line of the defense. But I could see him transitioning into like sort of like a Lonzo-like role, where I call it like the connective tissue piece. Like you're the guy who swings the ball or spaces the floor, hits the open three. If stuff breaks down late, you can put it on the floor, try to make a play. You're not like the main driver of the offense, but you're just sort of like the connector to everything else. So I could see Io being good in that role. I think, is Io good defensively? I don't really know. Maybe he is. He's not super athletic. I would say that's his biggest shortcoming. But he's always been the primary scoring option on the team. He's never had to be like, all right, my role is defensive stopper, right? He's always been the best player on every team. So it's going to be a transition for him, but I do think that he is the type of star player who can become a good role player. I think that's what he's going to have to be in the league. So I like that about him. And also, I just watched Ryan Archie-Diacono and Denzel Valentine for the last 4 years. Just like give Io their minutes, and that seems like an immediate improvement, right? Just like never want to see Denzel again. Denzel again. No, never. Just get him out. If Io's playing those minutes, that's tight, right? Like I think that's an immediate upgrade. Now, the one thing I'll say though is I view Io as sort of a safe pick, like a sort of a low ceiling, high floor style draft pick, because I don't think he is that high of a ceiling. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong a lot in draft stuff. Most people who give draft opinions and teams who make draft picks have been. So maybe I'm wrong and Io one day could actually be a starter. I see him more as like an 8th man, 7th man, which is still valuable. You need those guys on the bench, especially a guy who could swing between a couple different positions. That gives you some lineup versatility and flexibility, which is important. But when I looked at the Bulls, and this was before free agency, I'm like, the one thing they really need is a dynamic shot creator. So I love Sharif Cooper, a kid out of Atlanta from Auburn. I talked to him for a big story too, him and his dad. He was cool. He only played 12 games at Auburn because of an NCAA investigation, but he averaged 20 points and 8 assists as a freshman in the SEC. The only other freshman to do that in a major conference in the last 30 years was Trae Young. And his game is very similar to Trae's. He's small. He's just like a magician as a passer, but he can't shoot. And Trae was an awesome shooter. So there's like obvious reasons he slipped. Also, Cooper went 48. So I can criticize them for not taking him, but guess what? The whole league passed on him. He went back to the Hawks. We'll see what happens, I think that there's definitely a good chance Io becomes a better player than Cooper, just because Cooper is a little more boom or bust, right? There's a lot of variables at play. But yeah, I'm happy with Io. I like Io. Maybe I would have taken a higher swing at the time, but I'm super excited to have Io on the Bulls. I think that's a great story. I think he's going to be I think if nothing else, he'll be a solid end of bench player. He'll come in during regular season games. I'm trying to think of a comparison. Best case scenario to me would be like a Ronnie Brewer type who could come in and give you some energy, some length on the wing.
Now, is he going to disappear when he leaves?
He's probably got more off the dribble game than Ronnie Brewer. Brewer couldn't really put it on the deck in the half court. Yeah.
So it just comes down to philosophy. There's no right or wrong, but when they made the Io pick, I saw your tweet. So I already knew that you kind of what your mind frame was. But see, I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking that because free agency hadn't started yet, we didn't know who was going to be available, how they were going to be able to kind of mix and mingle things in that regard. That they couldn't afford to take a gamble on Sharif Cooper, and they had to kind of play it safe with a guy who can give them more. He's more of a well-rounded player. But let me ask you this, Ricky. Do you think that you sort of just answered a little bit? Do you think Io has enough kind of bounce in his game, not athletically, I'm talking about off the dribble, to get his shots off, to get to his spots?
Yeah, I see him more as an off-the-ball guy. I see him as a wing.
Okay, like a 3-and-D,
like not a point guard. I think he should try to remake his game like Lonzo or like Troy Brown. Troy Brown was also a guard in high school and in college who sort of became a wing because similar to Io, I just don't think they have that burst off the dribble that you need. Now, a guy on the Bulls who has that is Devon Dodson. They didn't play him at all last year, but I love Dodson. He's going to be on the Summer League team. He's super fast with the ball. He can burn guys off the dribble and get to the rim. So, we'll see if he actually gets an opportunity this year. I was really disappointed that the Bulls didn't play him at all last year. It's not like they were playing for anything else. You might as well have thrown him out there at the end of the season. But that's just my take on Io. I might be wrong. Maybe Io will be able to be a guard in the league, and he will be an on-ball player. I could totally be wrong. Thomas Satoransky didn't have super great burst with the ball. He was a point guard. He was pretty good, right? Like similarly big, like Io. Maybe Io could be like that. But the one thing I would love to see out of Io, and this is just like, you can say this about every young player in the league, it's just like if he can become a good spot-up shooter, that would just be really awesome. Like just not like have Levine and Vucevic just like spoon feed you open corner threes, right? That would be an awesome offensive role if he can become a good shooter off the catch. Like that, again, he's never had to do that in his life because he's always been the guy with the ball. And in Illinois, he was a good shooter off the dribble. So it's going to be an adjustment period. But, yeah, he seems like the type of kid you probably want to bet on, right? Like you talk to him, you think he's not going to do anything stupid. He's going to carry himself like a pro. He's going to work super hard. He's going to be the first one in the gym and the last one to leave, that type of player. So why wouldn't you bet on that? You know, you bet on his mentality, his size, the fact that he was super productive, first team All-American in college. That's kind of my read on it.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking too much. What do you think? What do you think?
No, we love your expertise, man. But I know Gabe's ready to say something.
If I'm Io, I'm watching a lot of tape Holiday. And I'm seeking to figure out a way of how can I model my game after him. If he can do that, he can have a long career in the league. Yeah, he's not the quickest of guards, but I think he's a guard that is capable to his spots. You can't really speed Io up, and you really can't slow him down either. And one thing that will get Io on the court is his ability to defend multiple positions, is just alluded to. You know, if you can do that under Billy Donovan, especially after when you look at the way that a lot of these guards were cooking the Bulls left and right last year in games, like Chris Paul putting on point guard clinics, Sexton and Darius Garland going off for like 30 apiece at the drop of a dime, like easily. I think guys like Io alongside of Caruso and Zoe will be huge in the backcourt for the Bulls just for defensive purposes alone. He's not going to be the lead guard, doesn't have to be. I think this is a great situation for him. You add the fact that you brought in veterans in the building such as DeRozan, who we can learn from on a daily basis. Like, he is a hard worker. You know, I watch a lot of his games and more firsthand and, you know, watching a lot of public league basketball over the last decade. And he's a special talent. I think being here, as long as he's able to just stay focused, this could be a very positive environment for him. And definitely, you know, if he can develop into a solid catch and shooter, like you said, Ricky, he will make a lot of money in the league and he won't have a problem finding a job at all.
That's a swing skill. If he does that, he's golden. And defensively, if he proves he can defend wings, stick with wings, because I view positions as like a size threshold, right? So, like, how big do you need to be a wing? I think you need to at least have a 6'10" wingspan. If you got a 7-foot wingspan, you're a 4. If you got a 6'10" wingspan, you're a 3. That's kind of how I look at it. And he's got the size. Like that, I love his size. Underrated attribute of him, you know? To have that dribble, pass, shoot skill set, potentially, in someone that big. Good pick. Yeah, so I like the pick for sure in a vacuum, but it's just a philosophy thing, right? Like, do you want to swing for the fences and you might strike out? Or do you want to just like, let's hit a solid double here? And in the second round, if you get a guy who can stick in the rotation, that's a great second round pick, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just glad that we can see the good PR side of the Bulls for the moves that they made and how they built themselves back up to relevancy within the city and the league as a whole. So I'm very excited to see what the Bulls are going to do. But just like the Bulls made some noise this offseason, so did a bunch of other teams in free agency. And if we stick to the Eastern Conference, I know for sure, before you hopped on, Ricky, we started talking about the conversation of winners and losers. My winner for the East, aside from obviously the hometown Bulls, really is Miami. I mean, you when you want to talk about retooling the team that you did, coming from a first round exit in a sweep, and then go from there to re-signing Jimmy Butler. You were able to retain Duncan, and then you bring in Kyle Lowry as your point guard, your pit bull. And you signed Markieff Morris as well when you're still making moves to bolster that roster.
DePaul legend Max Strus. Also.
Yes, Max Strus is going back. Yes, Max Strus is going back. Shout out to DePaul. But yeah, man, I have all those components coming to Miami. South Beach is looking quite lovely right now. And they got PJ Tucker too. I might have to make a move and just put my other residency in South Beach because it looks like they're going pretty deep this year. And they have the components on not just both the offense, but the defensive side specifically as well to do it. If you talk about a lineup that features Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, and PJ Tucker and Markieff Morris defensively, you're not going anywhere. That's a toughness that the league is going to have a very tough time to handle. So I'm loving the pit bull mentality that Pat Riley then brought back to Miami and how it's bolstered up this team. But that's one of my main winners. I'll go back to you, Gabe. Who in your opinion is, one of the main winners, especially sticking with the Eastern Conference? Who's one of your main winners?
Although I said Utah earlier in the East, I would say Miami outside of the Bulls. They put together a very, impressive all-season, getting a guy like Kyle Lowry in the mix. They got tougher. They got a lot tougher. And if it's, Pat Riley knows he's at his last hurrah. So if there's any team that you want to go out with, you want to be able to say that you did it your way. And I feel like he's definitely placed his imprint on this roster very heavily. I think PJ Tucker, finding a way to nab him out of Milwaukee on a 2-year, $15 million deal, that's a win. You're talking about a guy that can shoot the lights out from the corner. You don't leave him open there at all. And you saw how valuable he was for Milwaukee in the midst of their championship run, being able to defend the likes of Jason Tatum on the wing, or Kevin Durant. It was a boatload of other guys, like put them on, and you have them on Devin Booker from time to time and so forth like that. So to be able to get a guy like PJ Tucker in the building, that's nice. And I think Miami's having to prove this year, especially considering how they came out lackluster last year, out of the bubble, got off to a bad start. They were never able to really bounce back from that. With these veterans in the mix, and then they also re-signed Victor Oladipo, who, albeit is hurt, he gives you some depth at the guard spot. So I like what Miami did. I would say that out of the Eastern Conference team, they were the biggest winner, besides the Bulls.
Yeah, how good do we think Miami is? I feel like for Miami to be really good, they need it to be peak Kyle Lowry. Lowry's going to be 35 or 36 maybe even this year. He might be 35 already. His play, he's still awesome, no doubt. But I feel like he's starting to decline a bit. I don't know. I kind of is Miami, are they the third best team in the conference? Maybe. Definitely they have that potential. But I'm not too scared of them. Bam, Lowry, and Jimmy will be a sick 3-man lineup on defense, no doubt. And probably on offense, too. And they got shooters. You could talk yourself into it. But I don't know. Are they an Eastern Conference Finals team next year? I think I'm not too sold on them, maybe. Are they better than the Hawks?
I think they're better than I do think they're better than the Hawks, just from a toughness standpoint. Even though there's a lot to be said for Atlanta going through the playoffs the way they just did. That I think that does something to the team morale. But just those vets going out the way they did against Milwaukee, that was, oh man, I was so looking forward to that series, and that was like the worst series of the playoffs, man.
Middleton game winner in game 1.
Man, except for that,
sweet.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm a Jimmy guy through and through, so that was disappointing, man. Coming off bubble Jimmy, that was disappointing. But I have more faith, I think, in Miami getting to the 3rd seed than Philadelphia. We still don't know what's going on with Ben Simmons and if they are truly going to hold on to him or if they're going to come off of if Morey's going to come off his asking price for him.
I mean,
yeah, they were the 1 seed in the East, though.
Yeah.
So, like, they're still pretty good. They haven't lost anyone yet. They might lose Danny Green, who started. He started every game for him.
Yeah. Is there any way we can get Danny Green? Or I know we still.
I would love that. Yeah, give me Danny Green.
Maybe Josh Hart, Justin Winslow, somebody else in the front court, at forward.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's what they need. They need one more wing, defensive wing. Any of those guys would be awesome. Danny Green would be perfect. If they can't get him, Justice Winslow could be a cheap guy they could get. Or the German guy from the Wizards, Isaac Bonga. He's like a big 6'9" forward, long arms. He could be pretty decent.
Oh, yeah.
And the Bulls got Tyler Bay on their summer league team. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He was from Colorado. He's like a jumping jack, super active energy defender who can't shoot, and that's his knock. But like, he's an awesome buzzsaw of a defensive player, and I feel like the Bulls need that kind of guy, like someone similar to that. So maybe he'll impress in summer league if he can even hit threes at any level, 30%, whatever. Like, he could be pretty good.
Kind of like a Torrey Craig type of player.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, they both. I mean, you have to also remember too, Philadelphia did lose Dwight Howard.
Remember Roberson? I kind of view him like Andre Roberson.
Back
in the day. Because Roberson was a sick defensive player, but he had like no offensive game whatsoever, and that might be the Bay situation. But
yeah, and we have to remember too, Philadelphia did lose Dwight Howard going back to LA. Which was a key component for the big men size when you talk about being a replacement for Joel Embiid.
They lost Tony Bradley, baby.
Yeah, and they lost Tony Bradley to us. So, hey, I mean.
Did he finish the year there?
Yeah, but with Philly, you never know what can happen with that. It's been reported before we even got on that they're revisiting trade discussions with the Warriors. And it looks like they're trying to move on this pretty quickly because I think it's pretty evident that the Ben Simmons relationship in Philly is pretty much coming to an end. So you're talking about bringing Ben Simmons to Golden State. That might work. It might. I don't know what that situation could look like. I don't know what Philly could get in return, but it might. But based off of that, since we talk about the Eastern Conference alone, I think that will actually help these other teams, especially who 2 other teams were for me. I think actually they're pretty decent in the franchise as well. It's the 2 teams that are coming out of New York. When you talk about what the Nets did in bringing in Patty Mills to be that backup point guard for Kyrie to keep that second bench afloat, which is what they lacked in the playoffs this past offseason. And then not to mention as well, from a Knicks perspective, Kemba did come home. He is playing at MSG. This may be the first domino, potentially, of other stars that are of that type of caliber actually looking at New York to try to come home. Because at the end of the day, although Kemba may not be the same cardiac Kemba that we know before due to his injuries and if he can stay healthy, if Julius Randle continues to improve, the Knicks continue to win and stay somewhat afloat, playoff bound, that's all you need to get a couple superstars to your stadium. I mean, look what happened with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. The Nets stayed afloat. They made the playoffs. They showed a good young core, and it was able to move those 2 back to the other side of New York City. So, not saying it's going to happen, but it does increase the hope and the chances of potentially someone going to New York to revive the vibe of what the Knicks used to be, right? But I think those 2 teams, did enough to keep themselves relevant and afloat, especially from a Nets perspective, improving, with that backcourt and giving that extra boost by bringing in Patty Mills, by being able to resign Blake Griffin. And they're still trying to figure out the next moves from there, especially what they're going to do with DeAndre Jordan. But New York is still going to be buzzing on both ends now. And the moves they made is going to help bolster that relevancy on both ends. So I think that those two teams can't go unnoticed as well.
Yeah, I just hated them losing Jeff Green, man, in terms of Brooklyn. I think that might come back to bite them in the ass a little bit, man. And with New York, Fournier and Kimber, don't get me wrong, those are nice pickups, but they're just nice pickups. I don't see them getting any – they're not going to finish any higher next season than they did last season. They're probably looking at another first round exit. And if I want to go there with you, Josh, but because Kimber's not in his prime, I can't really say that this is a sign that New York is getting closer to being back on the map. If anything, I think Lonzo Ball coming to Chicago is a slap in the face to New York because he had those the Knicks were in being rumored as one of his destinations. He picked Chicago as soon as he could. You know what I mean? So I don't know. New York still got a little bit of a ways to go. I don't know if it's Tibbs or what it is, but they got a little bit of a ways to go.
They will get a big free agent within the next few years. I truly believe that anytime you got Leon Rose in the relationships that he has with guys at CAA and Worldwide West, they will get a big-time free agent. But I think it's going to take a spectacular lead RJ Barrett in order for them to finish as high as they did this past season. I do believe that they could be a playoff team in the East. I do believe that they could be a tough bunch. Kimber, to me, I'm a big Kimber fan. He's had some seasons, particularly in Charlotte. His first season in Boston prior to the knee issues was going fairly well for him. However, I don't know what type of Kimber we're going to get, and that's going to be the most intriguing thing. Runnin, he's back home, and it's good to see that he's back home on a playoff team as he should be. But he's the wild card in a lot of this. If he can bounce back and put together a productive year, okay, maybe they can build off of what they did and take it to another level alongside of RJ and those guys. But I don't know. I have a lot of questions about New York. Brooklyn, I like to pick up a Mills, another catch and shoot. They got guys that between Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, and Patty Mills now, who when you set up driving kicks, you got guys that are capable of knocking it down at a 40% or better ratio automatically. And that's going to be very scary and tough for teams to stop. They've already went all in on offense. This is just another move that, solidify.
So do we all just quick lightning round? Who wins more games this year, the Bulls or the Knicks? Ooh. I'll start first if no one else wants to. I'll say Bulls.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say the Bulls.
I got to go Bulls. It scares me because Tibbs always squeezes every ounce.
Yeah, great regular season coach. Yeah. So.
But I'm going to go Bulls just based off the talent that I think exists, the talent gap that I think exists with the rosters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going Bulls.
So here's another underrated part about what the Bulls did this summer. Now I feel like there's going to be so many games that are going to be must watch. Like when they play the Knicks, those games are going to be in terms of
TNT Bulls are back. The TNT Bulls are back.
The sixth best team in the East versus the seventh best team in the East. Those games are going to be electric because both teams are like trying to win. They want to win. Now these games are going to have like real stakes attached to them as the Bulls try to like get into the playoffs, get out of the play-in. So it's actually going to be like super fun to watch this year and to follow along. They have a lot of really fun games on the schedule.
Yeah, I wonder how many national television or televised games they'll get. They had two? Was it two last year? The Bulls, I mean.
Yeah, they'll have more this year. More.
Yeah, definitely more than two this year.
Yeah, definitely get more.
Well, I know a team that's going to have
that Brooklyn game is going to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's a good point, Gabe. But there's another team that I know in the back of my mind that is going to have hella TV time. And that's, of course, the Lakers. Because LeBron just took the whole clock back and just pretty much recruited everybody to take all these veteran minimum deals and sign on to this roster. I mean, you got to give credit to Rob Pelinka and the Lakers for them to pull the moves that they did. For you to trade for Russell Westbrook, and after trading for Russell Westbrook, having pretty much three max guys on your roster, You go from there to getting Carmelo Anthony, Kendrick Nunn, bringing back Taylor Horton Tucker, Malik Monk, who I thought was a huge sleeper in free agency, and on top of bringing Dwight Howard back. You know, you brought back a lot. You brought a lot of talent that was more than what the price is given to them. Kendrick Nunn and all these guys but they were willing to take these pay cuts to play with LeBron, to play for a championship culture, to win a championship. And of course, LeBron does this every year as the GM to help shape up whatever roster he wants to make. Because 9 out of 10, they're going to go at least to have a really high chance of going to the finals. But bearing everybody's healthy. But at the same time, this just shows that the Lakers can be a franchise. As long as you got LeBron James on your team, but a healthy Anthony Davis, you will never rebuild. You always retool. And that's what they've done this offseason and put themselves back on the map as a top 3 team in the Western Conference. And now many people are saying, oh, they're championship bound. They got to be finals bound because of the talent that they accrued. But I'm not so sure about that just yet, considering the fact that although you have all this talent, at least half of that roster is over 32. I don't know how much rubber's going to be on them tires. I don't know how many no practices they're going to have. I don't know how big that training staff is going to be. They're going to be working like clockwork to keep them guys healthy and injury-free all year round. I think they have a high chance of doing it, but the West is loaded. There's been plenty of movements in the West, especially even within this offseason that, cater towards the tough competition-wise within that conference. And on top of that, like I said, the age. I don't know if they're going to win a championship. They're definitely going back to the playoffs, and I can see them maybe going past the second round to potentially Eastern Conference Finals. But how far can this Lakers team really go? Like, is that really their ceiling? Is championship really the ceiling for this currently constructed roster?
I think it's definitely the ceiling. They just got to get there. They got to get to the playoffs. Like, I mean, you can say that about every team. It's a war of attrition, but for them, like, it really is just, man, please just let us get to the playoffs. If they can finish at least 6th, and I know they're setting a very low bar, just get them in the playoffs and see what happens. A healthy AD, healthy LeBron, even though the roster is up in age, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Westbrook or what they sacrificed in terms of team defense to bring in the players that they have. Think about it. We went from last season, for the most part, they were, Pelinka was applauded like heavily for the moves that he made. But this offseason, it's more like, man, what's going on over there? Like, are you guys really going to make it to the playoffs with the roster that you got? But Kawhi being injured, not knowing what he's going to do yet with this opt-out, that's a big boost for them. If they're healthy, I don't really – they're the favorites if they're healthy. I'll still give them the favorites if they're healthy, for sure.
They should be the favorite. Anytime you have LeBron James on your roster, the ceiling's always a championship, no matter who's there. And everybody can talk about how old the roster is, but, if I can recall when LeBron was in Cleveland, he had a lot of OGs with him, and they were always seeking to get older guys on vet minimum deals for whatever price they could that was affordable to try and, enhance LeBron's championship run or window. They gave up a lot defensively, to have a number 1 ranked defense the last 2 straight years and lose guys like KCP, who were a big part of that, as well as Caruso. That's going to hurt. But then if you watch playoffs last year against Phoenix and you're seeing a LeBron who, wasn't in it at 100% and not able to turn corners. And even when he was able to turn the corner and kick out, he didn't have shooters that he could trust to knock down shots. You got Melo out there that can do it now. You have Monk out there who can do it. You have Kendrick Nunn. You also added Wayne Ellington. If it's one thing that has always been able to maximize LeBron's championship windows, it's when he's had shooters besides him. Now, for the first time, he has that. Granted, they always had top-notch defenses through his first couple years in LA, but now I think you're going to see the reverse of that. The offense is going to start to go off the charts. In Cleveland, they didn't play that either, and the team was still successful enough to get to a finals.
Yeah, I think they're the favorites for sure. They should expect to go to the championship. And I think that Drew made a good point that, like, who's going to beat them in the West? Like, Kawhi's hurt. The Jazz, they just got totally exposed in the playoffs. They're pretty much running it back. Jamal Murray's still out. Otherwise, I would like Denver as a potential dark horse team. But, like, that's tough to recover from that injury. The Mavs' second best player is still Kristaps Porzingis. So they're kind of frauds just on that alone. So I don't know. I think that they should definitely be the favorites. One thing I'm thinking, though, is like that point about shooting. I understand that, but also I'm not sure if the shooting is going to be that good just by virtue of having Westbrook on the floor. Like, he can't space the floor, and no one's going to respect his three-point shot. They're going to dare him to take that. And I do think that he brings a lot of creation to them that will help them. Like, he'll be an upgrade over Schroeder. Westbrook's still awesome for sure, but he's a bad shooter, and he's a high volume shooter. He shoots a lot for someone who's really bad at it. So it'll be interesting, but Westbrook should make them awesome in transition. And the Lakers were really good in transition when they won the championship in 2020. So Westbrook, immediate spark plug in transition. I'm really interested to see who starts at the 2 next to Westbrook. Do they start Monk? Do they start Talon? Do they start Ellington as the veteran? I don't really know what they do there. And then, do they start Melo? Like, I don't think they do, but, like, maybe they do. And then how much center is Anthony Davis playing is the other thing. He doesn't like playing center. But on this team, I don't think you're going to be able to put enough shooting on the floor if Davis is playing the 4. Like, yeah, Gasol is technically a shooter, but, like, I think you want to be more versatile in that other spot on the floor. Gasol is so slow at this point in his career. So I think Davis got to play center, and then LeBron's got to play the 4. And then you got, either Melo, Ariza, Talon, Ellington, Monk, Nunn. That's a lot of guys who could play the wing. But, like, none of them are totally proven. I like Monk. I think Monk was a good signing. I hope he gets a chance. I've liked his game since college. Quick round, I'm just interested. Like, do you think they were better off getting Westbrook or Buddy Hield? Because both of them were rumored.
I think they should have just went the route and got Buddy Hield. Yeah, I think I would have got Buddy. I would have went after Buddy Hield. That's a guaranteed shooter, knockdown shooter, big guy that could fit better against LeBron, especially if he's handling the ball. But from what I've heard, LeBron and Westbrook were adamant in making this happen, and because of that, that's why they went in that direction. But Buddy Hield, I think, would have been a better fit, especially on paper and on the court with LeBron, as far as LeBron running the show and being that point guard or point forward that we're accustomed to him seeing offensively. I think Buddy Hield would have been a better fit.
Yeah, I agree. Basically the same reasons, although
then do they bring back Schroeder? I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah. I mean, did they really? Are you guys surprised that they turned the roster over the way they did, given that when they were healthy, they were rolling pretty well?
Schroeder messed up his own bag, man. That's all that was. Yeah. He messed up his own bag.
Him and Larry Marketing too, different.
Yeah.
They all did big time.
Yeah. So maybe you could bring back Schroeder.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gabe.
The way I look at it is like this, man. Like, I would prefer Buddy over Russell Westbrook, and I know Westbrook isn't the best shooter. But then again, let's ask ourselves this: when has Westbrook ever played with a big man as talented as Anthony Davis? And like you said, Rick, like, he's a monster in transition. Like, as soon as I saw the trade happen, I was like to myself, what do you do when you got Russell Westbrook attack you with the ball in transition and you got LeBron running on the opposite wing? What do you do when you got AD floor or you got them in a pick and roll together? Like, I mean, offensively, the firepower is ridiculous. Like, when you got Westbrook and James in the mix, you basically have given yourself last league leaders in assists. Like, you got playmakers on the floor. And the more playmakers and the more versatility you have, it's incredible. Like I was when Westbrook went to Houston, I had a chance to cover the Rockets. That was my last year covering them for Hoops Habit. I was like, Westbrook and Harden alone is a lot of firepower. And James with AD, that's scary. That's very. I don't see anybody in the West for a 7-game series able to match up with that. I just don't. And granted, the guys on the wing aren't the most proven of shooters, and it's a lot of questions, especially with Wayne Ellington, who's never been in pressure-packed situations like he will be in LA. But I do believe and when you playing around LeBron and you getting the looks that you're able to get, it's not gonna get no better than that. So if he was able to shoot, at the clip he was in Detroit, I can't wait to see him in LA. I think you start Kendrick Nunn at the 2 to answer your question, by the way, as well. I think that'll be the guy who they start at the 2 spot.
Yeah, I have no idea, really. Like, I don't even know who I would say is the favorite. I saw some Lakers bloggers say Ellington was going to start, and that surprised me. So they got a lot of options. It'd be cool if they started Horton Tucker, but we'll see. I have no idea. I agree with you. So last year in the playoffs, we had, this really surprising finals matchup between the Bucks, led by a 26-year-old superstar, and then the Suns at CP3, but like Booker was ascendant at 24. And I loved it, having some fresh blood in the finals. But like, don't we want the old man Super Bowl of Nets versus Lakers, like all of the superstars on the floor just duking it out? Isn't that what we want? Or do we think we're going to get that? I guess the one thing holding up, it's time. I think it's time. The one thing I'll say, though, is those two teams are big injury risks. AD can get hurt. Durant, Harden, Kyrie, any of them could get hurt. So it's kind of funny. It's like the old guys, now they got to team up, but they're also there's more variables because of their age and their injury risk. Anthony Davis is like the oldest 28-year-old ever. I love AD, but it's like hard to believe he's 28. He's just always banged up. So I personally would like to see the old man Super Bowl. Like, what are the chances it happens? I don't know. It's sort of interesting to debate. There are a lot of variables with injuries for both of those teams.
Yeah, but just the storylines, if that was to take place, man, Oh my God. The cross matches and bad breakups and all of that, it would be awesome. It would be awesome. For sure.
Yeah, and it can happen. That's the thing that's making that thing so special and why we love the league so much, right? You create scenarios that you used to believe wasn't possible in NBA Live and 2K in its prime, and now it's coming to reality. You can actually see that. I mean, so because of that, we obviously want a Brooklyn Nets, LA Lakers finals. But what is the backup option if none of those work out? Like what we talked about how Brooklyn is injury prone. LA can be injury prone as well with Anthony Davis, which is a plus for Russell Westbrook, for LeBron as well because of Russell's durability. That's going to be huge for them down the stretch. But aside from that, if you can't get a Brooklyn or Lakers versus Lakers championship, who is your backup option? Who would you ideally want to see in the finals?
Well, even more than who do you want to see, like who's most likely to come out?
Right.
So in the East, I would say the Bucks for sure. You got to go with the Bucks after they just totally proved themselves on the biggest stage. In the West, I don't even know who you put second in the West. I mean, is Kawhi going to play this year?
That's a good question. I can see the Suns making another run.
Back to the Clippers?
Is he coming back to the Clippers? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. That's the biggest part in everything to me. Because Kawhi, what is Kawhi card? And all of that.
True.
Hey, how about this, guys? What about 2 years from now? The Bulls trade DeRozan for Kawhi because Kawhi wants to come to Chicago and they get traded for each other again. And then the Bulls could get Kawhi for 2023. That's kind of moves we got to be thinking about here.
That's big time. That is a big time move.
Right.
I don't know if I want that or if I want the Kevin Durant one. Though. I don't know which one I would want. I probably would want Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But imagine though, since you want to go there, Ricky. Imagine though that happening, and you have Patrick Williams, which is like the baby Kawhi they're trying to put together over there in Chicago. Imagine if he somewhat emerges with those similarities with Kawhi on the wing. That might be a nice pairing. I think I would like that.
Yeah, or given how aggressive Karnisovas is, like maybe Patrick Williams gets good and he just flips him. If you could, like maybe he looks like a really good trade asset, and that's how you get a superstar. Because right now, Bulls look tight, they look good, but they don't have that like top 10 player or probably top 15 player. So historically, you need that level of guy to really like make a move in the league. But we'll see. Maybe the Bulls can pull off some 04 Pistons magic and just have like a really solid starting five. Make some noise.
Yeah.
In this day and age.
Y'all, it's always some bit of luck, right? That goes into a team's playoff run. So you never know, man. You never really know. Ricky, I'm interested to hear what you think about the chances. I know you spoke about in your piece, I think, about DeRozan and how he kind of assumed the role of kind of a point power forward for the Spurs during his time there. Where do you see the Bulls going with potential small ball lineups? Of course, it depends on who the matchups would kind of dictate what they do. But what do you do? Who comes off the floor in that situation? You keep Ball on the floor. You put Caruso in there. Does White make an appearance?
Yeah, it's a good question. Pat comes off the floor, DeRozan to the 4, Zach to the 3, Caruso and Kobe. Or you go the super small ball lineup in Pat plays center. Like, they haven't really done that, but we see in the playoffs every year, like guys who are Pat size play center in the playoffs every single year. Like Gabe just said about Rudy Gay potentially being the center. Like Pat's about the same size as Rudy Gay. And he's like pretty big and thick too. Like he can absorb contact at the rim. You can't like plow through Patrick Williams in the lane for a layup, right? He provides a lot of resistance just with his body type. So yeah, I think that DeRozan's going to play on the ball a lot. And remember last year though, like the Bulls had a ball heavy movement, like a ball movement heavy offense. It's not like they're going to play like the Rockets with Harden where one guy dribbles it the whole time. They're going to be a ball movement offense, but I see DeRozan handling it a lot and like playmaking a lot, and Levine sort of running off screens and looking for opportunities to get easy buckets as opposed to just like trying to create off the bounce every time down.
Yeah, I mean that would drive well with what you said about Lonzo Ball being more of a connector than a creator or initiator. That would fit well. I can see that. I would like that. I really want to see. I mean, I can't imagine Levine being any more efficient next season than he was this past season. But damn, he will have the opportunity to be for sure playing with you guys.
Have you seen these Olympics? Have you seen the way he's shooting the ball in the Olympic right now?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, and I'm glad he brought that up.
I know it's more talent. Man, he's shooting it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm glad Gabe brought that up because we can now transition into the Team USA side of things. Men's basketball had us worried in the beginning with the exhibition games and the struggles they had there, playing with I think only either 8 or 9 guys, and having the 3 other players playing in the NBA Finals with Middleton and Drew Holiday and Devin Booker, and at the same time, now they're back into the fold. They're trying to getting their gel together. And quite frankly, as of recent, it's really just been the Kevin Durant show. Just saying, give me the ball, let me go to work. And everything else follows. And the Team USA has just been getting back into their groove. And now they're playing. I think they play Australia. We're recording this at 9:30 p.m. They play in 2 hours, I want to say, against Australia. And if they win this game, I believe they go to the final round. the final round of the middle round. So, what do you think of the Team USA's chances now of for the men's side winning the gold compared to what it was earlier in this exhibition? I think it's pretty high, especially now that I kind of figured out a formula with Kevin Durant running the show. But I'm interested to see to hear what you guys think. Is there any potential upsets that may take place? Can Australia win it all again, or beat them again like they did in the exhibition? Because that seems pretty likely, considering that I believe this is the best team that Australia has had in a very long time. Especially when you talk about comparing it to Team USA. So, what do you guys think of the odds of the men's team coming out with the gold? I'll start with you, Gabe.
For me, I think their chances have improved. I think they've gained more continuity and chemistry with one another better as the weeks have went along, and they've gotten more playing with one another. My only concern with Team USA and the gold medal is, can they come out to start games ready to punch teams in the mouth? If you watch them the last couple games, specifically against Czech Republic and against Spain in the quarterfinals, their best quarter as a team and as a unit was in the third quarter. They picked up the defensive intensity and so forth like that. Not falling in love with the three ball, utilizing the drive and kick to set up looks from beyond the arc, but when they're not falling, using the drive, getting inside the rim and creating opportunities that way. I like the way that Damian Lillard played last game, getting into the cup, driving, kicking, setting up KD for shots as well as himself inside. I like the way that Jason Tatum has grown and played the last couple games as well. He's been very big for them off the bench. I think Australia getting a chance them before the Olympics have been for this group. I do believe that they're the favorite, but their road will be the most difficult road out of any team I've ever seen in Team USA to get to the gold medal. They have to beat Spain, and then they have to beat Australia and potentially Slovenia with Luka. That's going to be a very tough road. So I think they got a shot, but they got to be more consistent, and they got to lock up and stay connected defensively. And Lillard is going to have to be big these next couple games too, because when Durant sits, it's typically when the opposing teams go on runs.
I'll just add that my little 2 cents, man. I see them, advancing, and I see them playing France actually in a rematch. I don't think Durant has a bad shooting night the way he did in the first game, and also they won't be having three players that are jet lag going into that game. So I see them figuring out how to deal with Gobert and the other big man they got over there. Is it Poirier, I think is how you pronounce his name? I think they went big against Team USA, but I think they do a better job of spreading them out and making them pay for that. And they actually bring home gold, which nobody was really dead set on before we started this whole thing.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is that Zach LaVine has never had a 4-game winning streak in the NBA. And if they win this game against Australia, he's got a 4-game winning streak. So big pressure. If he can't get a 4-game winning streak on Team USA, I'm going to be like, come on, man. So I think they can do it for sure. But the one thing that jumps out to me about Team USA, Gabe said it, to me, they're pretty reliant on Lillard as being their second guy. Lillard hasn't looked super good in the Olympics yet. Obviously, he is an incredible talent who's capable of popping off at any given moment to be the best player on the floor. But what jumps out to me about the roster is they just don't get to the rim a ton. Now, obviously, they're also not getting the calls that they're accustomed to getting in the NBA, but you don't see many tough drives to the rim. And really, they just have a lot of pull-up shooters. They got a lot of guys who want to get into their bag, score off the bounce, which is cool. And when those guys are hitting, there's no defense. We just saw Chris Middleton win a finals series with incredible shot making in the half court. They had so many guys who are as good or better than him at that, with Durant, with Tatum, with Lillard. So they should win, yeah. If you're on Team USA, I feel you got to feel a lot of pressure. It's kind of like a scarlet letter if you don't win. You got to win gold. if you win gold, you don't get that much respect. But if you fail to win gold, it's like infinite disrespect. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure. Like, I hope they're not tight and they're ready to go. Just beat Australia. Like, I don't know. I'm not the most patriotic guy in the world. I feel like I'll root for the other countries, whatever. The only thing I'm patriotic about is USA basketball, actually, though. I've always liked watching the men's and women's Olympic basketball team. So it'll just be interesting because I do feel like they got a lot of pressure and they got some stakes attached to it. And yeah, I mean, France beat them in the World Cup and then France beat them in the Olympics. So they've lost 2 in a row to France now. So if they played them in the gold medal game, that would be really interesting. And then, Luka, like, that could be such a legacy moment for Luka. If Slovenia against the United States in the final, if Luka was to somehow win that game and he scores like 40, like, it just burnishes his legacy already at such a young age. Is like, this is an incredible accomplishment. So it should be fun. I'm excited for the game tonight. I just looked it up. Starts in 2 hours from when we're recording this.
Right. I'm looking forward to that too. I'm gonna pull an all-nighter and watch this one.
Is that only on Peacock though?
Yeah, every game, every Olympic game gets streamed on Peacock on the men's side.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be up pulling an all-nighter for that one. But I hope the Team USA wins it, especially with this current constructed lineup. Because the way this lineup was put up, I honestly didn't have that much high hopes, even though I thought, the roster is talented, but I didn't know if it really fit the USA, the actual Olympic component of what to look for, what they really needed. But it's starting to come into the swing of things. And we talked about guys like, Zach LaVine, who has flourished in Team USA, especially with his shooting from the three and being able to pick and choose the spots of when to score. So he's going to be big for this team moving forward, especially if you talk about Damian Lillard not living up to the expectation from a talent perspective we know he can live up to, and things of that sort. So I'm anxious to see how Team USA from a men's side will do, but the women have been killing. The women have been straight killing, and behind the leadership of Breanna Stewart, who we obviously know is just a beast. And Jewel Lloyd and Brittany Griner, this women's team is pretty stacked. Asia Wilson, I guess we shouldn't say we're surprised per se by the women playing, but to see them dominate the way that they do gives me a relief that USA is still dominant in some realm for basketball. And to see the women doing their thing, especially since we are a group that support women's basketball, women's movements, and the women in the WNBA as a whole. I think this is a huge boost for the WNBA, considering everything they have gone through leading up to this point, and for them to take those talents to overseas with the Olympics and to dominate the way that they do. It's just a testament to pretty much how far the WNBA has actually come from a talent perspective and how impressive the talent really is within the U.S. component of the actual league as a whole. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this, and I'll start with Ricky on this. But I'd love to hear more in depth as far as what the Olympics really mean for the women's side. I think obviously for the men, we're accustomed to success from the men's side, gold medals every year, and the success and the legacy that comes from that, and for players as a whole. But from the WNBA side as well, there's a lot of legacy at stake as well when it comes to Sue Bird and those older. I would love to hear your thoughts on what this Olympic experience overall can really mean for the WNBA.
Yeah, so the women just take care of business every time they go to the Olympics. Since 1984, they've won the gold medal in every Olympics but 92. So I don't know what happened in 92. I'd have to look that one up. But from when we were all kids and we followed the Olympics, the women's basketball team in the Olympics just crushes it every year. So it's happening again. I think that, they still have a pretty big advantage over the rest of the world. Now you'll see like Gabby Williams playing for France and Messamin playing for her country. So there are like other WNBA pros from around the world, and that's great. I know that like this year, the second pick in the WNBA draft was from Finland to Dallas. So it is a global game on the women's side as well. But the U.S., it's just like they just have so much star power. It's just like a who's who of every great player in the WNBA, really, besides for Candace. To have Asia Wilson, Stuart Bird, Taurasi, Griner, Chelsea Gray, I mean, they're just so loaded. So Jewel Lloyd as well. Yeah, it's awesome. And it seems like there's a lot less drama on the women's side, right? We know we can trust the women. They're going to take care of business. The dudes, I don't know, more variants. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, it's cool to see, you know, what the women are doing. To me, they the real dream team for real. Because since 1996, when the games was in the, they've completely dominated, as Ricky said. And I think it's special anytime you got Super and Diana Taurasi going for their 5th medal. And meanwhile, you have Asia Wilson, who's really been putting up numbers down in Tokyo, putting up like 20 and 10 on 50% shooting, going for her first one. To me, it's kind of like the passing of the torch, if you will, because this might be Sue and Diana's last Olympic Games. So to see what they're doing and dominate the fashion they are and pass the torch to the likes of Asia and Breanna Stewart, who are going to keep USA basketball in the forefront, you know, with the next nucleus of talent, I think that speaks tremendous volumes. Just watching them Olympic format and play, like there's no one really, you know, in their league right now. Like Ricky said, they dominate. To me, they're really the quintessential dream team.
Yeah, those are all very good points, man. I just hope that they continue the legacy per se and continue to dominate the way that they do. We support women's sports. We support what they're doing over there in the Olympics, and we support not just on the court but off the court activities as well. And they're impacting not just America as a society as a whole, but literally the world, as you guys have mentioned. And for them to be able to do that on one of the biggest stages again, man, I tip the hats off to them. I hope the men can do the same as they, you know, get ready for this upcoming game. With one of the biggest tests they're going to be facing as they go for the gold. And we'll just, like I said, we'll just see what happens. But it's nice to see what's going on out there, not just on the men's side, but the women's side for sure, and the success that they're bringing to the Olympics. That being said, man, we're going to wrap it up here. Got to prepare for this all-nighter that I got to pull now that I watched the Olympics game. So obviously we thank you guys for tuning in. We thank Gabe. We thank Ricky for coming on the show. Obviously, thank you, Drew, as always, as one of our guys. Before we end out of here, Gabe and Ricky, I'll start off with you, Gabe. Anything you guys got coming up that you want the audience to know, and how can they follow you guys on your social medias?
Well, you guys, you know, you can follow me. I'm on Twitter at what Gabe said. It was at the bottom. Right now, I don't have a lot coming up with the writing tip or whatnot, but I'm always on Twitter, always talking basketball, always talking hoops, always, you know, engaged in discussions, love the game. But I will eventually soon be back in the space for sure. But until then, I'm always on Twitter where you can catch me at what Gabe said.
How about you, Ricky?
Yeah, I'm at SBN_Ricky. I feel like I've been busy, you know, covering the league through the playoffs, then the draft. The draft is one of my main beats, and now the start of free agency. So I'm looking forward to free agency slowing down, and then I'm going on vacation, man. I'm getting out of here. I haven't gone on vacation yet, but I'm just going for a few days, going out of town. So that'll be fun. And I got nothing really planned coming up, but just covering free agency. Wrote a big thing on the Bulls today. You can check that out if you want to. And I'll have, you know, just free agency coverage on SBNation.com.
For sure, Ricky. Always gonna be always following your work, and like you mentioned, follow Isaiah's article on the Bulls and the recent moves. His reaction to the recent moves that the Bulls just did at SB Nation. And obviously continue to follow what we do here at WARR Media, WARR Media at Substack. Follow all of our written content there. Obviously, Drew, with the Chicago Exchange and everything, and all other articles coming his way. The maestro with the pen, always putting out some good content. So always check out his stuff.
And Josh, you dropped a piece on the Bulls as well. You and Ricky dropped great pieces on the Bulls and what they've been doing in free agency. 2 different perspectives that everybody needs to go check out.
I'm gonna check that out, Josh. I'm gonna pull that up.
Most definitely. Honestly, you dropped a bomb on me, Drew, because I didn't even know it dropped yet. So thank you for letting me know that it's out there. But if not, obviously I got a piece coming out too for WARR Media talking about the Bulls as well. So to be able to check that out on WARR Media, we are RegalRadio.com, WARR Media Substack, and obviously follow Drew on the Twitter at Look What Drew Did. Instagram as well. You can follow me on the social media, Instagram and Twitter at Josh M. Higgs Media. Got a lot of great stuff coming up your way. And just stay tuned, because at the end of the day, we always got a basketball that's bouncing in our court. So best believe we all got some topics to discuss. Again, guys, thank you guys so much for coming on. Appreciate it. And of course, to our audience, keep tuning in. I don't know when the next one will be, but best believe whatever it is, I'll be on it. And I'm pretty sure Drew will be too. And at the end of the day, always stay up, stay blessed, keep bouncing.